Hello and welcome along to the VMTV Rugby Pod. Fiona Hayes alongside me online. Jenny Murphy, I think at some stage may join us. Fiona, we're not sure where she's got up to on her travels, gallivanting away anyway.
She is, and she's obviously had a late night and forgot to set her alarm. She's really slacking, I think, Stu, a lot lately. Do you know what I mean? Not making this a priority and travelling to Canada. I mean, tut.
You've told a few tales there, I didn't, but there you go. Right. So we look ahead to the final round of the Six Nations. Plenty going on across it between positions 1 and 6. Our focus will be in Ireland for the opening part of the chat anyway. They've picked their team, a debut for Epha Corori, one of your club players. As much as you want her to play on Sunday, she's playing in the big stage on Saturday. Delighted for her. We won't get into that. Nevo Dowd's back in the front row. Aoife Wafer misses out. Ruth Campbell is in there. And Dorothy Wall to the back row. Plenty of changes, but also plenty of new opportunities, Fiona.
Yeah, look, I think it's obviously I'm absolutely gutted. Two of my outstanding players have been removed last minute. We didn't even know down in Bowes, but unbelievable for them, and they're just going to add something. I don't know how long I've been saying that Epha Corori is one of the best fullbacks in the country, and I'm absolutely delighted. She's worked so hard in the last 2-3 years to get to where she is, and to get a first cap will be unbelievable for her and for her family. And look, I think the thing about Aoife is she's just unbelievable. She's got a GA background, so she's brilliant kicker of the ball, but it's her tackling, her ability, how she reads the games, and the line she's running all season that has come up trumps for us. And she's been behind many a try score down in UL Bowes this season, and the excitement is building for us to watch her. I think we had a jersey presentation of our own last night, and a lot of people were talking about they'll be crying when they see Aoife singing that national anthem, because they know how hard she's worked for this. And Jane Classy, obviously I have to mention her as well. Peter Classy's own daughter has made the bench, so she's going to get in there and hopefully get a chance at second row or back row, and she's someone as well who's earned a shot at this. But the thing about it, Stu, is the stability of the people around her. So we've seen as well last week, you know, Aoife Enya is in the centre with Aoife Dalton. We've got Dana. Molly Scuffle McCabe has retained her place there as well. So these are tried and tested as well in that back line. Amy Lee Costigan, unbelievable. So to have those people around, these fresh, hopefully Jane will get a cap as well. New caps coming on, I think settles them, and it just shows what Scott is trying to do. He's adding a few little ingredients in here and there with a view, I suppose, of that World Cup coming up.
She's come up through the ranks at Ennis, and then she's been around the Irish system before. Maybe last year in the Six Nations, the wider squad, and definitely maybe coming into the sort of the going to WXV. I know she didn't quite make it, but basically my point is she's been thereabouts. Yes, a few injuries, but why now? And is she ready for the big occasion? She seems to be. You've talked about her threats. Is it all over the park with her at fullback?
Yeah, look, I think obviously everyone has different aspects of her game that they'll say is better than other players. But for me, she's a brilliant all-rounder. She's 100% ready. I think she's been ready for quite a while. But to have the hunger as well of not making it, she wasn't even in that original Irish squad. He called her in a little bit later, so she came into that process. She's not full time. She's got her work and her study outside of that as well. So look, she's been building away nicely. So I think, Stu, when you get an opportunity like that, and it's not that everyone hasn't worked hard when you're up at Ireland, by God, everyone up there has worked their socks off. But when you've been a little bit longer than some of the other people up there and been tipping away nicely at club, playing a bit of Celtic Cup, I think when you get that moment, you know you have to seize it with both hands, and she's someone who certainly has the capability to do that. And I spoke about her strengths, but one aspect is her ability to tackle, and I'm huge in that with a full back. I think, you know, obviously they have to be able to read the game positional wise, be able to see space, kicking, run lines. But I'll always look at one of my best tacklers to have them in that full back, because you are literally the last chance saloon, and she's someone who always comes up with big moments for us.
The rest of the team, they're going for their first time winning 3 away victories since 2017. Scott, after the Wales game, putting on 40 points, still seemed to be very frustrated even this week. Speaking in camp, it was all about maybe the breakdown wasn't as good as they wanted and they missed opportunities. Is this now the reality of this Irish team? They want another, yes, victory, but a performance is talked about and more points and sort of making the gap. That's what it's all been talked about, getting the gap closer to France particularly and maybe England down the track. Yes, that's a big step, but you know what I'm trying to say.
I do, yeah. And look, I was a bit shocked at how frustrated he was because I thought that Wales started the game really well. And then Ireland lifted it to a level they had to. Yes, there's going to be errors, but Ireland lifted it to that second level, and it was the opposite to what you've seen the week before, I suppose. With England, they faded a little bit in the second half, so to have the ability to up in another gear, I suppose, and really put Wales away in that second half was huge for this team. Yes, there's going to be errors. He's also a coach, so he's trying to instill, you're never going to get perfection, but he knows, he's worked with England for so long. He knows, I suppose, where they're at and what you need to do to get there and catch up with them. And it's actually, you said the breakdown, but Ireland have, I think, retained 98% of their own rucks. They've the highest breakdown in ball retention from their own rucks in the whole tournament. So look, they'll work on things, and every time, whether you win by 100 points, you'll always find something to work on. But I think he's really pushing them for this last game. He's made a few changes as well. So I as a coach, he knows it's almost, when the Six Nations end, sometimes, yes, the WXV is a little bit away and you forget about it. But now there's a focus on World Cup, and he's pushing these girls hard because he wants them another level altogether. And even to be able to compete with them at World Cup time. I mean, who's to say that Ireland couldn't make a World Cup final or even win it if they can lift it and work so hard in the next few months, and that's what he's trying to do.
If we look at Scotland and the fixtures over the last couple of years, Ireland have dominated this fixture, but over the last 24 months, they lost that really difficult time in 2023, poor result, and then last year getting over the line. These seem to be all tight fixtures. Scotland, would you be fair to say, after the Wales game, have been disappointing? And maybe we expected a bit more, and they'll be hurting because if they go 1 from 5, it's like all this time we're saying, oh, they're improving. It's like, well, show us the evidence. I'm sure they'll be saying that as a group.
100%, and that's it. They're definitely going to be hurting. I think Italy in particular would have been a huge game for them, and how they underperformed and their defense really let them down. And that's a side we speak about Scotland a lot of the time and how their attacking has come on, but I've actually noticed their defense up another level in the last couple of seasons as well. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be the way. They've got some standout players, Evie Gallagher, so they have individuals that are probably playing out of their skin, but as a collective, it just doesn't seem to be clicking for them. And yes, they're going to be very, very hard and very sticky to beat at home. And we know that, and you spoke about it, Stu, that game last year was shock for us all. But they have the ability to lift it to another gear as well, the Scottish team. The girls are playing in the Premiership. I've watched them. You've got Nielsen. I spoke about Evie Gallagher. There's just McGee out in the wing. There's just an array of talent. And for some reason, this year in particular, this Six Nations, it doesn't seem to be happening for them. That doesn't mean that it all won't click into place in this last game and they'll cause Ireland massive trouble, but certainly the talent is there, and they are a team that are building and building. And as I said, hopefully it's not this last game where everything happens for them, but I believe that they're probably at the minute just a little bit behind Ireland in how they've developed, and especially in this Six Nations, we've seen a huge jump in performance from Ireland in around their defence, in around their attack, in around set piece. Scotland, I haven't seen them kick on, I don't think, from last year. As I said, individual brilliance at times, big players coming up with big moments, but as a team, as a structure, as what they're trying to do and how they're trying to attack, I haven't really seen huge improvement.
The other caveat in this is the last time for a competitive fixture before the World Cup. So yes, they have Canada and they have Scotland in warm-up games. But even coming out of this, on Saturday night, it's like, not where are we at, even for a confidence thing. Does that play in your mind at all if you want to go into the World Cup, or is it totally like, oh, whatever the result is, it'll be a new, fresh chapter? Or do you think, no, we want to come, yes, they want to win 3 from 5 big away victories, but could it sort of stop the momentum a wee bit if they don't win Ireland?
Yeah, I think I honestly feel like it could, Stu, because they're building something really good here. And I suppose when they looked at the fixtures at the start of the season, they would have probably said, look, 3 out of 5 is 3 wins out of 5 is acceptable. Is we will take that. 4 would be an unbelievable season. Anything below 3, I think, having finished third last year, I know they didn't win as many games, but having finished third last year, I don't think that they probably would look at it as a failure. Yes, it is hard to go away from home, and these big games are away from home this year. We know we've got, Scotland, Wales, obviously Italy. So in a World Cup and how they're building momentum, I think it would absolutely hit them for 6 if they were over in Scotland and they didn't come up with the win. Now, I mean, any type of win, it could be a sloppy win, and maybe not the best performance, but as a whole, you can move on from that and get over that. But if they lose the game and have only won 2 out of 5 games, I think you're as a coach then going into World Cup, you're trying to build up something that maybe isn't possible in the players' heads, having lost those games or not being quite as far along as they thought they were.
From a Scotland perspective, Rachel Malcolm's back in, and then you see Jade Conkle Roberts going into the second row. Yeah. So as far as my mind goes, he is getting his biggest pack out there that are dominant in collisions. Would that be fair? Also, there's a change with Brevin Holden back fit at 9.
Yeah, look, you're spot on. This is the type of game where he's saying, I need to get my best players on the pitch. Yes, I'll jig around a few positions. And look, Jade Congle is someone who's been around a long time. We've seen her play a lot of rugby with Harlequins as well. I'm sure at stages she has gone into that second row and has the ability to scrummage, because that's where you get caught. It's that scrummaging. And as I said, she's someone who's tried and tested. So look, he wants to get his big ball carriers out there. That's probably an area that Scotland have been let down in the pack, in particular, getting over the gain line. We haven't seen it as much as you'd like to. He's not giving they're not giving those electric backs a platform to attack from. So having those players, fitting them in, I think is saying to you they want to definitely battle Ireland up front. And they look at the first 10-15 minutes of that Wales game. You might say that's crazy, but they actually will, because I really feel, as much as Ireland frustrated England the week before, I really thought if Wales could have hung on in there for about another 10-15 minutes, maybe till half time, that they would have really rattled Ireland, because their referee, I suppose, was, I'm going to say, refereeing the breakdown a little bit different than what we would expect. There was a lot of stuff going on there. Wales, you have to be very careful. Wales were getting away with a lot, which is all part and parcel of it. You do it till you're told not to do it, and you could see the Irish girls were getting frustrated. And I think with this team that he's picked, Rachel Malcolm getting in there, he's really going to try and battle it up front and see if he can go after this pack. And you have to remember, Aaron King, Epha Wafer is a huge loss. So you're looking at Epha Wafer, I think, has the most turnovers from an Irish perspective. And then you're looking at Evie Gallagher.
Most everything.
Everything, I know. And then you're looking at Evie Gallagher on the other side, who has the most tournaments turnovers in the whole Six Nations. So she's a real threat. And Ireland I think they've 31 turnovers. So they are top of the charts. If you take Epha Wafer, you take Aaron King out of that from those first few games, you're probably not getting those big numbers as you'd like. So yes, some people are going to come in and do a different job, but certainly Aaron King, it's a side of her game. Epha Wafer's the same. She's sniffing around the back, trying to get those big moments. So I think it's that change as well in the pack. We know Doherty, and she was absolutely superb last week for me. I thought she was immense. It's the best. I texted her after the game saying it's the best game in a green jersey I've seen you play.
There's a bit of a Dorothy Wall fan club in Ireland at the moment. Ever since coming on against Italy, everyone seems to have been really impressed.
Yeah, look, it's as simple as this, Stu. The talent has always been there, and she's always been good. But I think we're now starting to see Doherty as excellent. And that's what she has. She has this another level. I coached her with Munster this year, just gone, and her professionalism, her understanding, her want to learn more, especially around the line out. She wouldn't have been someone who was a natural jumper. She would have been more of a lifter. She's decided to focus on that area. We see her with Ireland. She went over to Exeter. She started jumping a little bit with Munster. That has improved hugely, be it at Exeter and her coaching up in Ireland. You can see it. So she's constantly adding layers to her game. And now I see someone who's 100% going to get you over the gain line in her carries as well. Double hits going in all game, but it's the carrying the ball and her work rate on the ground. I suppose that all stems from fitness as well, Stuart, but and playing over in England, and that added, I suppose, bite that they have to their games week in, week out. It's such a high competitive level, but certainly Doherty in this Six Nations campaign, we've been blessed with Epha, blessed with Erin King, but if you're looking outside that in the pack, for me, Doherty is working like a Trojan.
Another thing from this Ireland team with the 4 games that have come across, plenty of tries, 50 points against Italy. We've talked about 40 against Wales. And then even, I know they lost against France 27-15, but the tries have come sort of from everywhere, Fiona. We talked about them all one week, then we talked about their back 3, now their centres. So surely as a coaching panel, they've got to take plenty of plaudits, but it must be great to have all this sort of these weapons, all part and all facets of the game where they can hurt other teams.
100%. I mean, if as a coach, if you're reviewing a game and someone is maul dominant, forward dominant, you probably spend a lot of time with your focusing on how we can stop that. But with Ireland now, it's much harder. As you said, Stu, you've got centres that are unbelievable. We've seen Stacey Flood in the backfield playing really well. The pack, the ball carries, just even Dana's kicking game. And, we saw with that Amy Lee try against England, there's a lot of variety there, and they're constantly changing up the attacking picture. So they're not, I think in the past, maybe I'm going to say 5 seasons, I would have said Ireland have overused their forwards and therefore are dying off towards the end of games. And people are saying, the pack look tired towards the end of the Six Nations. I don't think this has happened this year. I think that we see a real kind of focus on variety, real focus on using the backs, getting them into the game, especially that back 3 in particular. I'd like to see them more, but they are certainly trying to bring them into the game. And it's just brilliant for Ireland that they have such a variety of players that can score from any position in the park. And that's very, very hard to analyse when you're an opposition coach, because you just don't know what this team is going to bring you or where they're going to attack this week.
A last one on this before we get into the sort of the Grand Slam decider. Do you feel Scotland, yes, they beat Wales, but they'll hang in a lot more than Wales did this weekend? And can you see this being a 20-point margin of either side, or is this going to go to the wire, Fiona? Or do you think if this Ireland team have really, really kicked on, they'll win this game by 15 points?
Yeah, I think by 15 points, Stu, and it's just at the start of the tournament, I wouldn't have said that as in just focusing on Scotland, looking at how they've played, how much they've improved. I
get what you're saying. Yeah.
But now when I'm watching them, they're dying off a little bit in games. Not their want or anything like that, but just for some reason, teams are getting around them, they're getting through them, much easier to score on, and they're probably a lot more handling errors in attack as well. And maybe kicking or the kicking game isn't as good. And we know Nielsen is unbelievable. And this is the point I go back to from earlier, Stuart. They're not clicking, but who's to say that this is the week that they won't start clicking?
Yeah, and that's a stinker I've asked you, because you're saying by 15 points, but you're also saying that if they have one big day out in them, they can be very good.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, you know, sometimes you look at a squad and you could say, okay, this is their ceiling. With this Scotland team, I actually think there's a much higher ceiling. They just, for some reason, haven't been able to reach it. So with Ireland, losing Epha Wafer will be a big loss to them as well. But we've seen last week, they lost Aaron King and they were still able to come up with an absolutely brilliant performance and brilliant moments at times. There's a few changes in there, so I envision, I think it would probably be a little bit of a slow start from Ireland, but once they find their way into the game, once they start the set piece in particular, when that's dominant. I mean, Linda, sorry, I didn't bring up Linda last week as well as you, and she was brilliant. She was exceptional. You know, there's so many players that came up with big games.
I think she's been exceptional for 18 months. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong, but I will say, in attack in particular, the first, I'm going to say 3 games, I was a little bit shocked at how little they used her. But it's
okay. Right.
It's kind of their pod and their system, and obviously Epha Wafer in being the big ball carrier that she is, if she can kind of get you over the gay line, things might change, and Linda suddenly is in a different position and has to rock or finds herself, you know, maybe a little bit behind the gay line in how they're trying to play. So we used her a lot in attack in WXV. I didn't see it as much in the first 3 games, but I thought last week she got herself on the ball. The hits she was putting in, her scrummaging was brilliant. So it's a bit like Doherty. So she's been good, but last week we saw a real kind of flash of, yes, this is what Linda can offer you at tight head. And I suppose as well with Niamh O'Dowd out, Linda got a chance to kind of shine and be that big hitter, whereas Niamh's such a huge rush up, you know, in that line. She probably takes some of Linda's hits as well, which is fine. But she just really, with Niamh out last week, I thought Linda defensively, yes, I talked about attack, but even defensively, she really stood up and was there for the team.
Niamh's an interesting one. She's so humble. Yesterday, I'd never really heard from her, but in the press conference, you know, people were saying, about the yellow card, and she was like, yeah, I need to learn, and she was making it really clear it was so difficult for her. And then someone was like, praised her for her tackles, and she was nearly saying, yeah, but I missed a few. And everyone's like, well, if you're gonna make 150 a game, you know, that's the emphasis. You're gonna miss a few as well. But she's not come out of nowhere, but she's really a difficult day in court, don't get me wrong, probably against one of the best packer front 3 or front 6 as the subs come on in the world. But she has come on one of the probably the standout players, hasn't she been, Fiona?
Oh, look, I've been watching her with Old Belvedere for a couple of seasons now. I'd say 3 seasons maybe. She's been my one to watch. I just, around the park, I'm in awe of what she done at AIL level. She just seemed to be everywhere. Obviously, she's worked so hard in her scrummaging. So from that, I suppose the end of last year's Six Nations, she did WXV, and now she's in this, and she looks completely at home. She looks unbelievably low, compact, connected in the scrum. That's an area I'd say she's worked really hard on. And just as well on that, like, how often do you have a prop leading your line speed? It's so cool. I think it's unbelievable. She's obviously been handed that license. I want you to leave the line, get everyone up with you. But if you're a little bit ahead of everyone else, it's up to everybody else to get up there with you. You know, a lot of teams don't have a leader like that. You probably try a little bit connected, but you're giving her a license and everyone else knows around her that she's shooting, and I'm going to look absolutely terrible on camera. I'm a mile behind the prop.
It's funny, now that you mentioned that, I can't think of any other tight or loose heads that lead their defence. Maybe I could be wrong, but they're normally posting pillar with the hand up.
No, and that's what I'm saying. Like, you're normally, like, if it's not someone in the black line, you're probably, you know, it might be 12 a lot of the time. Then you're looking at I suppose a back rower. You're giving your 7 license to absolutely. And I just think that her character, how she learns everything about her, she has the ability to go the whole way to the top, and to even come out in the media, and she knows the yellow card, and look, these things happen in rugby, and she'll always kind of put pressure on herself. But certainly her performances from a defensive aspect are just up there with some of the best I've seen in Irish colours. I'll be honest with you, yes, she's missed a couple of tackles. She'll say that. Sometimes she's overshot. But when she gets up and hits, she is leading from the front. And everybody, if you watch it in the game and watch it tomorrow closely, anybody watching, if she can get in that first or second hit and that line speed, you see everyone else around her wants to get up. And that's what happens, especially in those, when Scotland will have the ball, she'll be putting the pressure on. And it's more about bringing everybody else with her. And I think she has the ability to do that. Her personality makes everybody around her want to do that.
Well, it's going to be a crunch tie at the Hive Stadium tomorrow afternoon. Just after that, it's the Grand Slam decider, Allianz Stadium, Twickenham. England, they picked their team. Harrison back at 10, Hunt at 9, Matthews in at 8, and then Singh actually at fullback.
Yeah.
Yes, we could run through their whole team, probably all the extra 45 players in the squad or whatever it is. But is this only one winner for you, Fiona? Vernier's back. I know she was back last week or been involved since her difficult day with the red card in Belfast. But which way do you see it going?
Only one way. Only one way, and it's England at home as well, pre-World Cup. This probably is thereabouts what I'd imagine their starting team would be if they were heading into World Cup final. I think this would be right. Mm-hmm. I think this is there. Obviously, Emma Singh is coming in because Kildun is injured. We know she's obviously a starter, nail-on starter at fullback. But certainly when I look at the squad, Batterman, Maud Moore, I think that's the way to go. I think England like to have Sarah Byrne on the bench coming on, making an impact if they just do that. And a lot of these girls have also played together as well. There's a lot of caps involved there, and having Mo Hunt back at 9 with Harrison, they work really, really well together. And we don't want to be the downers on France too, so we're doing it every week. But I just watched France against Italy, and look, all I'm saying is I don't think they're going to be able to compete for 80 minutes with England. They'll have moments, but on the back of that performance as well, close game. I thought they got out of jail with the win. To be honest with you, I thought Italy could have.
Well, that's what I was going to say. 21-9 at half time. You're like, oh, they'll kick on, and then no, 50 minutes. You're going to kick? Nah, don't really seem to not fancy to be. Maybe we're doing a disservice to Italy, but 60 minutes. Then somehow it sort of get a bit of a turnover and then score a try, and then at the end get a sort of breakaway. And before you know it, you're like, they've won by 10, 11 points. That must be a comfortable win. And in my eyes, it was anything but.
No, I mean, it was a good game of rugby. Like it went through. But from this, if you're just looking at it from the outside and you're saying, can either of these two teams beat England? That's the way I'm talking about it now, is from that. The game of rugby, I thought Italy were brilliant. I thought France were brilliant in patches. But to be able to beat England, you have to put in an 80-minute performance and then back it up. We haven't seen France in the Six Nations put in a full 80. And as you said, you expected them to kick on at halftime, and it just doesn't seem to happen for them. So I just don't think England at home, that they'll have the ability to beat them. I think England will run away with it with a few tries as well early on.
I was going to say, like, that's not what you want in this competition at all, but there is a real possibility of that.
Yeah, and look, for the sake of the competition, for the sake of the tournament, I really want it to be a game where we're saying Le Crunch every year, and hopefully in 2 years we're saying Ireland, England. That's going to be a battle, and I think that's the way it is. It's probably, if Ireland can beat Scotland, you're looking at, yes, that's the top 3 in the Six Nations, and Ireland are a little bit off, but hopefully in a couple of years they'll be able to really go after England and be able to close that gap massively. We thought the same about France 2 years ago. That 3 years ago, I'll say that, yes, they're catching up with England. They're going to improve. They have the full-time program, everything in France, but they seem to be a little bit static, and they haven't pushed on. England have pushed on, and France haven't pushed on. So for the sake of the tournament, I'd love for it to be a good game, them to challenge England, but I'm not sure if it will be.
Would you nearly say, and it's hard to know because I don't want to have both egg on our faces here. Hello, it's all about your opinion. But would you say the gap between Ireland and France is nearly closer than France and England?
I do. Yeah, I do. And look, France will say, look at that first game. I feel, obviously I'm an Irish supporter as well, but I would watch a lot of rugby, and I watch a lot of France, because I do, when they're playing great rugby, it's unbelievable to watch. But having watched that, I feel like if Ireland played France this weekend, I'd say, even based on the first weekend, I'd say yes, this Irish team have improved so much that they would really, really put it up to France. So I do think the gap is lessened there. And if you're looking at it from the World Cup aspect, I suppose you're looking at England, Canada, and New Zealand. I'm not sure I'd hold France in that same top three bracket at the minute. Now they could perform unbelievable tomorrow, and then they have a lot of time before that World Cup to build. As I said, I just haven't seen a huge growth in them, in how they're playing. In fact, I think even the set piece has gone backwards a little bit, which is something I always would have said. England can't handle the French maul. They can't handle the French line out. And in the last couple of Six Nations, and especially last year, and even watching other teams in dealing with France, I'm not sure they're getting that strength of the maul. They're not scoring a lot of maul tries. There isn't much variety around line out. So I don't even see that now.
Okay, our last game that we will focus on to close the tournament will be Wales and Italy. Moves to a Sunday fixture. Sean Lynn this week yet to have a win, and it was pretty damning actually what he was saying, which is another way of looking at it, because we're so Ireland and green focused. But if we go to his side, he said, the errors were far too many, and also these people, it's sort of not a last chance saloon with this squad before the World Cup, but some big harsh calls might need to be made. And that shows he's ruthless. You've talked about how highly you rate him in the club game, but he'll be feeling it as well, being like, if I'm doing my part, the players need to deliver a bit more.
Absolutely. And I think he's correct. I think for the players that are out there, a lot of them playing even with Gloucester, and I suppose a league winning team for the last couple of 3 years, and watching them even last week, I was just surprised with the amount of handling errors, with the lack of line speed at times, with I suppose when they turned over their ball, how slow they were to even readjust and transition from attack into defense. It was just a little bit off, and he's just come in, so he's able to lay that marker down nice and early. So he probably came in, he's getting to know people. He's, as I said, I've heard he's an unbelievable people person. He likes to connect with his players before anything. So I'd say that's all done and dusted now. And he's saying, okay, we're after getting there. And he's built up that little relationship. And because you can't come in and start like that, because no one will have respect for you. Whereas he's obviously spent enough time now building up relationships, and he knows he has the right to say, this absolutely isn't good enough, and there is enough players around to take your place if you can't come up with something, because this is international rugby. And I think it's correct, and I think it's good for him to do, because this Welsh team have the ability. They're like Scotland. They actually do have the players. They have the talent, just aren't clicking. He probably needs more time with them to get them clicking, but there needs to be a little bit of fear in it as well, because I think they've almost fallen into and I could be wrong, into a place where it's not that you're comfortable losing, but you're not quite as gutted losing when it happens a little bit more often. So I think he needs to reinstore, Welsh, we need to be winning and we need to be physically dominant, because they were for 10-15 minutes of the game against Ireland, and then it just faded.
Do they lack a wee bit of X factor? I know they have Jazz Joyce, but if we look at Italy, for example, even though they lost by 50 by Ireland, Mucho scores a hat-trick against Scotland, and then Dinka, they have a few line breakers. With Wales, I'm just sort of thinking, we talk them up and maybe their backs are there, but I'm just always looking for a few more line breaks, or is that a wee bit harsh?
No, I think you are correct. I do like Hannah Jones. You've got Hannah Jones. I think Courtney Knight started the last time in the centre. Lisa Newman, you've Jazz Joyce. Look, there are players there. I'm a big fan. I think Ciara Bevan at 9 has a huge X factor, but for some reason it's not happening to him. Whether they've played such structured rugby for the last couple of seasons that they're afraid to come out of their system, or they're a little bit slow to come out of their system. But I don't see that at Gloucester. So I would imagine Sean Lynn is trying to, yes, everyone's going to have a system, but not so reinforced that you can't come up with these big moments. But certainly, yes, I think you could be right. But Jazz Joyce, to me, is someone who can light up a stadium. They haven't gotten her enough ball. We talk about, I think it was last season we were talking about Cox as well on the wing. So they do have players that can score tries, electric footwork, but for some reason we just don't seem to be seeing it. So yes, we know Muzzo, but if you watch Italy and how they play, they like to get their players the ball. Their transition. So I was speaking about their transition from attack to defense, but even with Wales, the transition from defense to attack, there isn't huge line breaks off that. Everything seems to be a little bit slow, whereas Italy have the ability to move the ball so quickly that they give space and time to these electric players to be able to come up with moments. I just don't think anybody in Wales have given their key players the space and time to be able to do that, because I've watched Jasmine Joyce all this Six Nations. She's had a couple of line breaks, but other than that, there's about 3 defenders on her by the time the ball gets out. The ball in air, everything about it, it's just too slow, or how they get her into space just isn't happening.
Okay, there you have it. Before we get our predictions, a word on Jenny. She never quite made it, Fiona, which is disappointing. She'll need to send her apologies to the millions of viewers and listeners across the world. But brains trust, Fiona. So we have 3 games, Ireland, Scotland, then the Grand Slam, England, France, and Wales. Italy, which way are you seeing the last round of the Women's Six Nations going?
I think this is my easiest week, Stuart. So I feel like definitely Italy at home. On the back of their last 2 performances, I think they're going to win it at home. I think obviously Ireland are going to beat Scotland. And I think the France-England game is normally a bit, I think this year I'm going to say 100% England.
Great stuff as always, and thanks for the last couple of months, Fiona. And don't forget to tune in on Saturday afternoon. Coverage starts at 2 on Virgin Media 1, and we're at the Hive Stadium for should be a belter between Ireland and Scotland. Thanks.